Hello, this is World Business Report from the BBC World Service. I'm Susannah Streeter and a warm welcome to the programme. Norway's sovereign wealth fund diversifies away from holdings in some fossil fuel companies. Is this a warning to major oil firms that they have to start investing in renewables? And I'll speak to the founder of the new app, helping employees mobilise and lobby for change in the workplace.
This is where the power of the crowd comes in. If it's one person speaking out on their own, it's quite risky. But when you've got 100, all of a sudden it becomes much more powerful.
Plus, on International Women's Day, we hear from the serving female officer who was the inspiration for the latest in a gender-busting careers book series for children.
I had 3 children whilst I was serving in the regular army, because the army is a lot more understanding of what it means to be not only a serving female but a serving parent.
Send us your views about any of the stories on today's programme. I'm on Twitter at BBC Streeter, New York. Now, one of my favourite bedtime books as a child was a little green book called What Daddies Do. My 2 sisters and I liked to hear about Harold Bean going off to join daddies in the world of work. But now, 40 years on, I clearly see this book as an anachronism. Particularly, this page in particular jars with me. It's daddies who make our newspapers, our books and magazines, and daddies who produce the shows on our television screens. That is certainly not the case in 2019, but stereotypes persist. However, there has been a wave of new books aimed at busting gender myths, and one of them, My Mummy is a Soldier, was launched this week. It's part of a series of books authored by Jason Bryan and his sister Corinne, an engineer. I caught up with Jason and Lieutenant Colonel Debs Taylor, who was the inspiration for their latest edition. I first asked Jason what it was like seeing the book on the shelves.
I can't give an actual word as to what it feels like when that print's come through, and you know that it's making a real change as well. So it's not just the fact it's a book, it's the fact that it's a book that's breaking down all these gender stereotypes.
I want to bring in Debs Taylor now, Lieutenant Colonel Debs Taylor. You are a mummy and a soldier, aren't you? How did you first become aware about the potential of this book?
I go back to a time at Sandhurst where I was brought in to do a project to celebrate 100 years of women's participation in the army. And as part of that project, we held a forum with lots of different people speaking about how we could be more proactive in our engagement of the next generation to help increase female participation in all roles which suffer from sort of gender stereotypes. And during the process of putting together an event for 900 young schoolgirls, I became aware of Corinne and Jason's work. And I invited them along because I thought what they were doing really resonated with what we were doing, which was changing young people's perception of who they could see in these different roles. And over the course of a lunch and a conversation, we understood that there was exactly the same gap with the armed forces and in particular with the army that there are with the other subjects that Corinne had written about.
One of my favourite books when I was a child was a book called What Daddies Do, and you follow the story of Harold Bean as he goes out into the world of work, and it's literally just daddies. There are no mummies there. This was published in 1970, and me and my sisters still adored it, but it just certainly shows how long it's taken to have a book published showing what mummies do and go into a lot of detail about that.
From my own personal experience, my mum was a soldier in the army, and way back in 1968 when she got married, she had to leave on marriage, and then the rules changed that you could stay after marriage but you couldn't have babies, and then we changed the rules on that, and we have seen a very gradual progression, but there is still only about 10 to 12% female participation in the army, and we just know we can do better. But it is about changing not only young people's perceptions, but society as a whole's perceptions.
Now, you can't take away from the fact that being a soldier does mean tours of duty overseas, which isn't really that conducive to family life, is it?
It has been an issue as we've tried to work through some of the problems with facing equality and hoping to grow the female workforce. I had 3 children whilst I was serving in the regular army, and I certainly see that a lot of those barriers are starting to be removed because the army is a lot more understanding of what it means to be a serving female. Not only a serving female, but a serving parent. And so the ideas behind flexibility, behind parental leave, all those things are becoming more and more to the front in army life.
Jason, was that the driving kind of motivation for you in creating this series of books to ensure that girls aren't just, given a snapshot of what they could do, but really given an in-depth look at certain careers?
Yeah, exactly that. So it's all about breaking that gender stereotype and just letting people see the world and the career paths that they have in front of them and know that it's available to everyone. Nothing's specific to a man in the workplace, nothing specific to a woman. And also that these things aren't what you expect them to be initially. So a lot of the children, when you ask them questions about these professions, their answers are quite sort of one-dimensional. So they don't really know all of the things that you can do in these different professions. So before we went to the focus group, I put together a draft, wrote pretty much the whole book. So we got the rhyming together and we knew how it was going to flow. But then after we had the focus group, all of the content pretty much changed because there were so many things that we had no idea that they do in the army.
Debs, could you read out your favourite part of the book that kind of sums up your career and how you'd like it to be relatable to girls and boys growing up?
My mummy is a soldier. She strives to be her best, putting herself forward to serve and help protect. She hopes to make a difference by supporting those in need so people stay healthy and happy at home and overseas.
And that was Lieutenant Colonel Debs Taylor reading from My Mummy is a Soldier, written by Jason Bryan, who you heard there, and his sister Kareen. A great way to end the programme on International Women's Day. Thanks for listening to World Business Report with me, Susannah Streeter. Remember, you can keep in touch on Twitter at BBC World Biz or with me at BBC Streeter. From all of us here, thanks for listening. Goodbye.